In a time of flowing rivers along the Rockies, below the evergreens of Colorado traveling nationwide. I had two parental figures that got carried away in love and a journey beyond the creation of honey, in turn had all but conceived a lunar-born child. Ill-prepared for what may come, on July 5, 1996, my mother had been sliced by the belly, and from within the doctors pulled out Kristoff Helman. The night was young, the air was putrid and sweet. A dog named Boo, a retriever, waited at the top of the stairs. Fast forward to 98, in a small town called Lancaster. My father, John, a longtime volunteer firefighter and cabinet maker, had brought me along on a call sent to Station 66. Little did my mother know, the night would be advanced into house maintenance. At 3 years of age, I had become accustomed to computers, specifically Windows 98. By 4 years of age, I had created the house emblem for off-duty fire shirts at the house utilizing Adobe Print Shop, entitled Spartans of the North Side. By my 9th year on this earth and a little brother also in the picture, life would slowly roll downhill as a sled would in the snow during winter in a storm. Riding the waves of a scanner, I had stumbled up the basement staircase on one particular morning at the north and walked into the office, and interrupted a sniffing session with a cola in my hand. Roy, Hatfield, Rankin, as well as my father stood round a granite countertop watching the TV program Cops. I had kind of always been able to chill in the station. Egan, the chauffeur who was the chief, as well as my mother's former supervisor at Select Security, as well as a narcissistic millionaire, should not have been allowing this to take place. As for the computer I had used to create the emblem, I had also completed Firefighter 1 as well by the age of 10. The drama this caused was driven mainly by the men's sexual orientation, dissatisfaction with buddies, or their spouse. Fast forward to the year 2012. I was 15 years old. Short, ugly as hell, and no longer interested in their brotherhood. So I took a journey to Harrisburg. I had maintained my friendships from a homeschool cooperative I went to weekly since 9th grade. Specifically, a close buddy from Elizabethtown. Between courses, training, and sleepovers, life was never dull. By the age of 17, I ran away. Off on my own, I sought assistance from my locality and social support system. Family meant much less to me, at least close relatives, moreover my parents. I had caused enough scenes that I deserved a clean slate and a fresh start. So I held numbers, chased numbers, and lost numbers more times than I could count. Kind of like Count from Sesame Street, 1 phone, 2 phones, 3, and so on. As I ran, and like Gump did I run, I had to have had at least 12 charges stacked for and against me. I eventually had settled at a temporary residency on Race Street in Lancaster City, Pennsylvania. I had previously been employed at a local gas station in Lancaster, and farmers market located a county away in Thomasville, Pennsylvania. Provided with a phone, I had continued working my job. I also had to handle my company's safe and financial situation. My favorite courses in school, which at the time was Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, were law, psychology, and Latin, which I took at a private residence with an educated set of teachers. My friend in E-Town raised goats, chickens, alpaca, the whole 9 yards. This set the tone for the next 5 years back at my family's residency with my mother, father, and younger brother. As a child, during my junior high years, I had an arsenal of Nerf guns, lightsabers, cap guns, and hunting/sporting firearms. The latter not really being a part of my life until about 16 or 17 years old. Winter of 2014, I had bagged 6 squirrels in the woods of the Gamelands in Gretna, PA. I cooked and ate 3, dissected one for science, froze one, and gave the other to my dog. 2 years prior I went on a hunting excursion with the daughter of one of my father and brother's bowling coach, Katrina. You know the song for Sweeney Todd that goes something like, "There's a hole in the world like a big black pit that's filled people who are filled with shit." There was a pit filled with blood and poached deer in the park where we were hunting that I fell in after she left me behind. I had to call a brother who lost his respect for me after following my scent. That was the drift. Music was always a pivotal staple in my life from a very young age. I had a habit. I would torrent entire discographies on my school computer and transfer them to USB drives, iPods and iPhones. Well, at least the ones that I owned. I took piano lessons for 9 years, guitar for 2, and 30 minutes of vocal lessons. I spent countless hours composing, practicing, writing lyrics and producing my own mixes with the aid of my piano teacher and guitar tutor. They were never that great when I was young, but like most breathing things matured with time. The object of my affection since 2007 would have been taken prior to my ability to express my love. I'm sure that my mother would have assumed it was someone else, because if she knew, I doubt she would have approved. However, I don't mean to use the word object in a means to objectify. She had helped me through mild depression in junior high, as well as through my 20s. Her father, a moderate man, Marine, a little grufty at times, enjoyed old Milwaukee beer and full-bodied cigarettes. By Christmas of 2014, I had been on a wagon ride on a farm to pick out a tree, during which, whether she had been present or not, had always been a gift. Though this is how I truly feel, that Christmas was so long ago, and actually a reason for both creation and eradication of despair. A photograph in time that holds more value than the world to me. She, like Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, became the hope-providing star of guidance that, whether I was actively thinking about, had always been there for me. I can't decide whether this is going to turn into digression of obsession, an expression of my affection, but, well, I would want the best for her regardless. I've always appreciated her existence. It was between the months of June and October of 2014. I had been enjoying friendships I had been making in group while doing outpatient therapy to avoid my family's dysfunction. I had a friend there who drove a truck, smoked cigarettes, and enjoyed decent jokes. Though older in age than I, she had been great at helping me through some dark times as well. One of the most supportive social contacts I'd had. Lydia MK, someone I had met in 2012 and surrounded with love from afar, had found me on a dating site, Plenty of Fish, in 2015. Our correspondence online opened the door for one of the most advantageous and detrimental relationships of my life. I had only been able to reunite with her due to my friend from group therapy providing me with a ride to a bowling alley where she lived. For all intents and purposes, Lydia had been my first real kiss, lay, and love. In spring 2015, I had signed up for selective service in case of a possible draft. April 2016, I had engaged in another day program group therapy for 2 weeks. Late 2016, I had re-enlisted in the armed services for a possible career as a behavioral health specialist MOS 68X. Having requested whiskey prior to my 21st birthday, I had consumed a fifth of Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 while on a date with a student from California attending Franklin and Marshall. I had subsequently passed out on the couch in the administration office by the fireplace. When I woke up, I had lost my debit card and phone but had everything else on me. I had proceeded to go to work that night. I had spent the time between July of 2016 and March of 2018 on my own in Lancaster City in a one-bedroom apartment on Walnut Street while simultaneously employed at a paper factory and gas station on Harrisburg Avenue. After a brief 15 months, the city had all but become a ghost town, or maybe it just felt that way due to working night shift most of the time. I would walk about 5 miles to and from work late at night and early in the morning. I'd walk even farther simply to meet my friend, which I mentioned in my passage about Christmas 14, who lived outside the city parameters. Skyla, a friend whom I had roomed with at Race, would often pick me up and we'd drive around. Though most of my journey had been on foot. I moved home 2018 in the middle of March for a year. I spent 14 months in a psychiatric facility, where 9 months in, I had collected my first $31,504 check and continued to receive them until discharge in July 2020. I had purchased a used 2004 Chrysler Sebring Touring convertible for around less than $2,000. White. A beautiful car. Just to cruise to the gas station down the road from my house was enough to make my day bright. I typically drive to the gas station about once a week to pick up a roll of smokeless tobacco, a pack of cigarettes, and some energy drinks. In 2022, I had contracted COVID-19, or rather SARS if you will, as did my family members. This, combined with my mother's myalgic encephalomyelitis, proved to be detrimental to our overall health. We had always smoked cannabis together, well, at least my mother and I, not my father. Since its legalization in Pennsylvania for medical reasons in what I remember being 2016, my mother had received her medical marijuana card. By 2023, our family could no longer afford the mortgage on the house we were living in, and my mother had started a property search for lots of land in upper New York State. I had not any desire to reallocate my geographic position, having suffered through my medical ailments. I had spent the last 6 years in an immense amount of pain and stress, yet I hadn't pursued my medical card. The legalization of cannabis being the only redeeming factor of the move for myself. In March of 2024, I had reluctantly accompanied my parents on a van ride to and through upper New York. The journey, being cold and painful and a little, rather much too far from comfort for me to be okay with, had ended with my request for, or prophesy of, a short stay in a mental facility in Gretna, PA. I had received a prescription for Depakote, to which my mother became obsessed with my taking. After a few weeks being on that specific medication, my parents journeyed back to New York on their own, leaving my brother and I behind with our then current love interests. One night when I was alone, I had a PTSD flashback that had been so terrifying that my heart skipped a few beats and I all but collapsed to the ground to be circled by my dogs like prey. I called my mother over the phone afterwards, scared and shaken to let her know, but she was preoccupied with my dad at a bar. In May 2024, 3 months after, the house had been sold. My parents and I started a camping excursion in a cougar camper while waiting for the property to become available. Between the months of May and September, the majority of our income had been spent at campsites, beverages, and recreational marijuana purchased at the res. Increasingly dissatisfied with their mentality and behavior, the amount of time spent at the bar, as well as the flavor of the drinks, I had decided to remove and block my parents on my Facebook account and subsequently posted a mix of 6 different raps I had written over the past 4 years and recorded on September 8 onto the platform. The next day, my mother frantically had called the police on me, who on September 9 had admitted me into the psychiatric unit of Claxton Hepburn Medical Facility in Ogdensburg, New York. I was released on October 23. Got set up with services and rented a motel. Sitting. Pondering of possibilities. Unsettling nuances of vein infiltration. Overcast and dreary. The mind wanders. Riding whimsical winds and curves. Drops fall from a dark sky. Shattered hopes and dreams in a catacomb of concrete and puddles. It's winter, a white storm of fluttering flurries and a blanket of cold lay on the ground. It has been decades since I've witnessed such accumulation and never-ending snowfalls. A year has come and passed since this journey first began. 50 miles from Canada on a plot of land in a refurbished refrigerator trailer. This is where I spend most of my time. Relaxing, smoking, writing and listening to music. If you drive north for 30 minutes or so, you'll reach the reservation where most of the shops are cannabis dispensaries. I've smoked weed since I was 13. Never did I expect it to be this readily available and cheap. $50 ounces? You know I've got a bit. It's legal here in New York. There's a little bar down the road from here. I'd frequent it during the summer. Haven't spent much time there since Thanksgiving. It's almost February now, Christ how time flies. A little drink I created includes mentholment cranberry liqueur and ginger ale. Before staying in the trailer, we had spent 3/4 of the year camping in a cougar camper. Both of these living quarters need a generator to be running for electricity. It's obnoxiously loud and shocking to the system, but you get used to it. I've got my dogs, Zoe and Callie. There's 2 cats here as well. A couple weeks ago we got rid of a parakeet. Temperatures here are colder than I ever experienced, with numbers going into the negatives some nights. The wood stove in the trailer is very efficient, however. I've remained comfortable. I've lost contact with some close friends of mine and lost others, but I stay content.